Welcome back, and thank you for joining us for Day 9 of the Stellenbosch International Chamber Music Festival 2024. And here we are on the penultimate day of this year's festival, coming to you live from outside the Endler Hall in Stellenbosch, South Africa, and still coming to terms with what happened on the rugby pitch in Durban just a few minutes ago. We're getting ready for the second of the student orchestral concerts that form the culmination of the Sicmf, and if you joined us last night, you might still have the strains of the mighty Brahms and Borodin ringing in your ears, courtesy of the Festival Symphony Orchestra. But despite the drenching rain which continues unabated, it's been another busy day here in Stellenbosch with 2 student ensemble concerts and a viola masterclass. Things are getting even busier here as the audience files into the hall for the Festival Concert Orchestra under Simeone Tartaglione for music by Rossini, Khachaturian and Dvorak. And tonight's concert is generously sponsored by Standard Bank. Thank you for your support. So let's look quickly back at last night's performance of the opening work of the concert, Senza Maya, by the Mexican composer Silvestre Revuelta Sanchez, played by the Festival Symphony Orchestra under Mike Repper. The Festival Symphony Orchestra there, comprising mainly students from this year's Sicmf, with that energetic Mexican piece based on a poem that describes the incantation accompanying an Afro-Cuban snake-killing ritual. And if you join us here at the Sicmf tomorrow afternoon, you can hear it again. My guest now is someone whom you might recognize from last night's live stream. He was playing in the orchestra and indeed also in the final faculty concert on Thursday night. Violinist Daniel Albertine, who studied at the South African College of Music at UCT, during which time he won several prizes and competitions. And besides being involved with much ensemble playing in and around Cape Town, currently ad hocs as a tutti player with the Cape Town Philharmonic Orchestra. Dan, made it to penultimate night of the Sicmf.
Yeah.
What keeps bringing you back to this festival?
I would definitely say the overall cheers for me. I think
The
lots
vibe,
of the
the
vibe,
spirit,
yeah,
to
the spirit,
translate
yes.
for our
Sorry, yeah.
foreign viewers.
I do think lots of the time, as musicians, we are often very isolated, all the time practicing and stuff like that. Even between gigs, we don't really have much time to socialize and stuff. But for festivals like this, I think lots of us can come together, connect, especially with stuff like chamber music. Makes it very easy for us to communicate and explore ideas with each other, I think. Yeah.
And do you think it's the structure of the festival, the master classes, the faculty concerts, the chamber music groups and the coaching sessions that all contribute to that?
For sure. I also think lots of the fact that we all get to like stay in the same res or stuff like that, spend a lot of time, see each other at lunch. So, for example, if we have orchestra rehearsal in the morning, we go to lunch together and we all will chat about it, obviously, and we'll speak about what happened. And then in the evening, when we have dinner, we're like, oh, I had this coaching, this masterclass. We'd watch each other's performances and be like super supportive and stuff like that. So always a time to like share ideas, which is cool.
That's really good to hear, because that seems to be a recurring theme from a lot of my chats with the faculty artists about being not just a musician but a human being, and this kind of the holistic development and everything that comes with that. So the Chamber Music Festival really helps to facilitate that,
for sure.
the personal and professional development.
I do think lots of the time we say we are musicians and stuff, but we are just people, and we need to share experiences with each other, I think, which is
and that's probably what makes chamber music an especially
the best
intimate
way,
and special
sure,
form of music making.
100%.
Compared to this enormous orchestra of which you were part last night. And how was it playing in that orchestra?
It's actually, people don't realize how special and how much of a privilege it is to get an opportunity to play in orchestra, to be part of so many musicians all at once, driven towards the same goal, I think is something very special. And having ad hoc with CPO, we have about, for the strings, maybe 4 or 5 desks, depending on the concert, per section. And to have like 7, 8, 9 sometimes, it's a different kind of sound, you know. It's so full, and it's really special, I think. Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot coming from someone who plays frequently with the CPO, and of course they work extremely hard as an orchestra. You must know your other players really well. In some ways, yesterday's, and we'll hear the Festival Symphony Orchestra again tomorrow, is sort of a scratch orchestra. It's just coming together for this festival, and yet you do have a lot of friends, colleagues within the orchestra, and I guess the conductor plays a very important role in bringing everyone together onto the same page in a very limited period of time.
I think it's the progress that has been made from day one to now is actually, I am kind of blown away about it. It's really impressive that considering some people only get their parts the first day they arrive, to in that small time to be able to get where they are now and be able to play. And also a massive shout out to Michael, because wow, I think he does such a brilliant job, and he has such a good way with connecting with the younger players and the older players, and trying to get them all to kind of learn at the same kind of pace. You know what I mean?
No small task.
Yeah.
But again, once more, musicians being humans, and we spoke on the very first night when he was sitting in your seat there saying he doesn't treat young musicians any differently from professionals. We're all humans, musicians, wanting to do justice to the music and make beautiful music. So why would you kind of dumb down your approach or do something differently?
We were speaking in rehearsal this morning, actually, and I think it was Jennifer Stum, because we were rehearsing the Bartok, and she was saying how it's important that you give all your energy, everything you have, even if it's just a tutti part or whatever, to play some music, make music together. You know?
Which is difficult in a rehearsal context, because one sometimes thinks, I'm saving myself for the performance.
Well, I think mainly sometimes it is quite frustrating to stop, start.
And you lose the flow and the momentum, the bigger musical picture.
But at the end of the day, I think it's really worth it when you get to the final performance, especially after last night. The kind of adrenaline that you feel.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Time, regrettably, is against us.
Yeah.
I mean, firstly, music runs in your family, so quick shout out to your dad.
Shout out, Dad.
But then the other thing is, it's great to have you at Sicmf this year, but a big change is coming in your life. We're actually going to say goodbye over the coming months. You're going to head to the Northern Hemisphere, closer to that team that just stole our victory in the 79th minute. So tell us what's on the cards.
So I'm heading to the Royal Northern College in Manchester to start my master's studies in September. It's going to be a lot of fun, very scary, but at the same time, I think a wonderful opportunity. Lots to learn, lots of new ideas that I think I can find there.
But everything you've learned here at the festival, UCT, all your other music-making experiences in South Africa are going to stand you in such good stead.
100%. I mean, lots of people often think less of African classical music, but I think we are blessed with good teachers and good role models and prodigies here that can really set the standard for us and can push us to anywhere that we want to go.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, cheers to us on those final words, and to you, Daniel, for the next stage of your musical development and your growth as a human. Thanks for joining us tonight.
It's been a pleasure.
Now over to Jason to tell us whether this next cold front in Stellenbosch has scared anyone away from the conserve tonight.
Hi there, John. Indeed, it's a cold and wet night tonight, but I'm here with a man that warms us up from inside every night. I'm here with Uncle Rico. Uncle Rico, you are in charge. You're the head barista. You're the owner of Champs Musical. What's the vibe like here tonight?
I think it's an amazing vibe tonight. Really, honestly, loving the vibe with the people, everyone that's here tonight. The support of the business, people are loving the coffees, and they just love being at the chamber tonight, man.
Lekker. No, I'm not going to lie. You are the reason that us as students, we get through those long and tedious rehearsals.
Awesome.
But I have something to say. No? And it's a lot of complaints. Because why? Some of us, we're trying to get the summer bodies in.
Okay.
But every time we get here, then there's a fresh batch of muffins and samosas and pumpkin tarts. And now we're eating 3, 4, 5 a day.
But you have to control yourself, Jason.
No, but we can't control ourselves. It tastes so liquor. No, but one thing, we just want to say thank you for all the hard work, because without you and without the other the people that involved, this show could not be running as smoothly as it is. I've seen so many people, they've come and they've had their coffee. They have all the options here outside of Stellenbosch, but they choose to come spend their money here. And we just want to say thank you. And what's the plans for after this?
Thank you so much, Jason. I think it's mostly got to do with just making sure that we supply the best product and make sure our consumers are always happy. Yeah. That is our biggest plan.
No, and you're doing a great job. Thank you so much for being here by the Chamber Festival. You are actually also here during like normal operating hours of the conserve, right?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so for those of you who could not have made it tonight, but want to taste the coffee and the pumpkin tarts and the muffins and samosas, they are here tomorrow. But now, as you heard, the bells have rung and the people are making their way to the seats. So I'm going to get my seat. So back to you, John.
Thanks, Jason. And indeed, last chance tomorrow, so don't miss out. And I must just say again that, as always, we're very grateful for all your comments, your engagement on our online platforms. And it's so gratifying to know that you can join us from wherever you may be tuning in. This evening's concert with the Festival Concert Orchestra opens with the famous William Tell Overture by Rossini, who lived from 1972 to 1868. This was the overture to the final opera by a composer who was, in the first half of the 19th century, considered, surprisingly, a more significant musical figure than Beethoven. The reason for Rossini's eminence was the common view that the most prestigious genre of music was opera, and Rossini's 39 operas achieved near complete artistic and commercial success in Western Europe, while Beethoven's Fidelio, his only opera in comparison, was a relative failure. Following William Tell, Rossini went into retirement at the young age of 37, must be nice, and unlike many of his other operas, William Tell was a large-scale, fully-fledged French grand opera rather than a sparkling Italian number in 3 acts. The overture itself is in 4 parts and takes a full 12 minutes to perform, and that's just the opening of the opera. So while I head inside the Endler for one of the last times this festival, here is the vivacious opening to the double concerto by Brahms that we heard yesterday evening, with Andrei Baranov and Boris Andrianov, conducted by Mike Repper, a work that has been described as having a vast and sweeping humor. And welcome back. We're inside the Endler Hall, gosh, for the penultimate time, the penultimate evening at this year's Stellenbosch International Chamber Music Festival, coming to you live from this part of the world. And as you've heard me saying a little bit earlier, we've got the Festival Concert Orchestra on the stage tonight, not to be confused with the Festival Symphony Orchestra that we heard last night and that we'll be hearing again tomorrow. And they're playing 4 works on the program tonight. The William Tell Overture by Rossini, and then 2 pieces by Aram Khachaturian, the Armenian composer, whose most famous work perhaps is the Sabre Dance that we'll hear just before the interval. And then in the middle, between the Rossini and the Sabre Dance, the Adagio from Spartacus, his opera. And then after the interval, a fantastic work by Dvorak, his Symphony No. 8, in G, Opus 88, and it's 4 movements: fast, slow, scherzo, and fast again. But it's a great work. If you know Dvorak's symphonies, he wrote 9 symphonies, of which the final one, From the New World, is the most famous. They're so buoyant and bustling with Czech energy. Dvorak was a Czech composer and often used elements, rhythms, colors, dances, melodies from his homeland in his music. And this piece is bursting with them, the symphony that we'll hear in the second half tonight. You'll notice the Standard Bank banners on stage, and the lights here in the auditorium are a little more blue than usual, not the Sicmf purple we've had for the last few nights. And that's just to acknowledge the very generous sponsorship of Standard Bank, who's supporting this concert tonight. Last night and tomorrow evening we have Mike Repper on stage. We have 2 faculty conductors at this year's Sicmf, and the other is Simeone Tartaglione. You've seen him on stage a few times, most notably on Thursday evening at the final faculty concert. Well, he's back tonight, pushing this orchestra, or taking it through its paces. And I'm sure, yes, a bit of pushing as well, as you probably heard me say in my conversation with Daniel outside a few minutes ago. It's quite remarkable that this orchestra comes together with less than a week's practice. In some ways, really just a scratch orchestra. Amazing that so many different musicians with different backgrounds, different approaches, really are brought onto the same page, with the same level and amount of interpretation in minimal time. And so that makes the achievement musically of last night, tonight, tomorrow night even more impressive. It's always quite amusing to watch an orchestra tuning up. You get those who are just sitting, waiting patiently, those who are practicing last-minute bits and pieces, last-minute tricky passages, just to make sure they do justice to the music when the house lights go down and the conductor comes on stage. And yep, you only have one shot at it with music. Well, maybe if there's an encore, you have another go, but that's something that's always bothered me in a way about music. Part of the allure and attraction, and of course the specialness of music, that you do these hours and hours and hours and hours of practice and then just have one shot, one go on the stage to distill all of that and to really bring it all out in a single performance. In that respect, recordings, studio recordings, are different. You can do it again and again and again until you get just what you want. But here comes festival director Peter Martens with a microphone.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I don't aspire to stand on the podium, but there's really no other space on the stage with this magnificent number of people behind me. It is probably self-evident that tonight's concert is sponsored by Standard Bank. And so without making any further introductions, I would like to say a very, very big thank you to Standard Bank. This is the second year in which they have decided to sponsor a portion of the Stellenbosch International Chamber Music Festival. This year they are sponsoring this particular concert. And my thanks to Tine Stievenage, the head of client coverage, personal and private banking from the Western Cape, for facilitating the sponsorship, and also to the Standard Bank private clients that are here, our guests tonight. Thank you very, very much for the support you are giving to the Stellenbosch International Chamber Music Festival. You may have also noticed the bright orange tank teetering on the stairs outside. And the cars this year have been sponsored by Roller Somerset West. And that partnership is also largely thanks to the introduction of Standard Bank. So thanks again to Standard Bank and Roller for both sponsoring the Stellenbosch International Chamber Music Festival. And in welcoming special guests, I would also just like to point out that we have tonight in the audience the Minister of Culture and Tourism from Mozambique, Eldivina Materula, and her husband, Julio Dengucho, who are our special guests for this weekend, and we're delighted to welcome you in our country to show you what we are doing here in the classical music scene and also in the field of education and development. Actually, perhaps this is an opportunity for me to say that I met Eldivina Materula in 2005 in Mozambique. She was then an oboist and since established a wonderful project called the Chikitsi Project. This is a project that uses music as a vehicle for social upliftment and education and development of kids who would otherwise be subject to poverty and the difficulties of certain areas of living in Africa. And much like the Stellenbosch International Chamber Music Festival, this Chikitsi project is a project that really gives meaning to the lives of young teenagers and also young adults. We have many such projects in South Africa and indeed in Africa. For example, the Namibian Youth Orchestra is represented by some players here tonight. In fact, the Chikitsi project has been here as an invited group before and is also represented at this year's festival by one particular player. And we have other projects that we are very privileged to support and host as the Stellenbosch International Chamber Music Festival. I'm thinking, for example, of the Cape Philharmonic Youth Orchestra, the Boccabello project near Bloemfontein, the Arco project in Soweto, and so on and so forth. And I guess my message is to Standard Bank and to the other would-be potential corporate sponsors. There is great work going on down here at the tip of Africa with music, classical music, as the vehicle for all of these beautiful young people. But without further ado, I wish you much enjoyment for the festival concert orchestra program, Maestro Tartaglione.
Well, Peter's given the cue, not much need for me to say anything, other than it amazes me that he is always so remarkably eloquent. You'd think as festival director he's got enough on his mind and yet still can find the time and energy to distill those important words and messages for us to hear. But a round of applause for our concertmaster this evening of the Festival Concert Orchestra here at the 2024 Sicmf. And as Peter Martens mentioned, while the orchestra tunes now, shortly afterwards the conductor Simeone Tartaglione will join us on the stage. And indeed a reminder, if you have just joined us, there are 4 works on the programme this evening, 3 in this first half, the William Tell Overture by Rossini, and then 2 works by the Armenian composer Aram Khachaturian, the Adagio from Spartacus, and then the famous Saber Dance. If you can't imagine it in your head, you'll almost certainly recognize it once it starts. And then after the interval, Dvorak's fantastic Symphony No. 8, his penultimate symphony that we're hearing on the penultimate night of the 2024 Sicmf. And you can get a sense of, really, like the symphony will be, how bustling and energetic it is here in the hall. Every inch of space on the stage taken, but also here in the hall with the friends, family of the young players, or other curious people, or music supporters who've all braved yet another cold front here in the Western Cape this evening today to come and support these young musicians. And Maestro Simeone Tartaglione coming onto stage to lead the Festival Concert Orchestra this evening at the Stellenbosch International Chamber Music Festival. the unmistakable overture to the opera William Tell by Rossini. And our conductor this evening, Simeone Tartaglione, congratulating various members of the Festival Concert Orchestra, the oboists, the cellists, and of course everybody now in that performance which opened up tonight's concert here at the 2024 Stellenbosch International Chamber Music Festival. And I see here in the program notes it's written, the finale, that last bit with the brass that is so famous that you almost certainly recognized, is called March of the Swiss Soldiers. And it's ironic that this famous theme that's associated with the opera and with horses galloping, because there's no cavalry charges nor any significant moments featuring horses in the entire opera. So it's kind of funny how a bit of classical music like that can get overtaken by other associations in popular culture, quite separate from the original intention or its original context for that matter. Some small adjustments on stage for the next two works, both by the Armenian composer Aram Khachaturian. He lived from 1903 to 1978 and was considered one of the leaders of Soviet composition, despite not often being considered alongside the big giants in Russian music like Dmitri Shostakovich and Sergei Prokofiev. Like Shostakovich and Prokofiev, he was publicly accused of promoting a Western-style formalism, in inverted commas, in the 1948 round of Pravda denunciations, but he was soon rehabilitated as a senior figure in the Union of Soviet Composers, and from 1957 until his death almost 2 decades later, he served as the secretary for that organization. His piano, violin, and cello concertos are frequently performed, though I must say, not often enough. His piano concerto is fantastic, and I wish we would hear it more. But he is otherwise best known for his ballets Gaiane, written in 1942, and Spartacus, written in 1954, and we are now going to hear extracts from those two ballets. Not operas, I think, as I mentioned a little bit earlier. So Spartacus depicts the slaves' resistance against Rome during the Third Servile War, that's in like the 70s BCE, when the escape of 70 gladiators culminated in a revolt that grew to over 100,000 slaves. And this ballet was a staple of the Bolshoi theatre, with celebrated choreographical settings by Igor Moiseyev and Yuri Grigorovich. Now the Adagio of Spartacus is going to be performed this evening. And then after that we're going to hear the saber dance from Gaiane, which is Khachaturian's other famous ballet. And that ballet concerns a patriotic woman torn between her love for her husband and her knowledge that he committed treason. And so here in the Endler Hall, the Festival Concert Orchestra tuning up first to A for the winds, and now to B flat for the brass. And back down to A for all the strings. One of my favorite moments in an orchestral performance is just after the strings have tuned, these few moments of pregnant silence before the conductor enters. And here's our conductor again, Maestro Tartaglione, now for music by Khachaturian, the Adagio of Spartacus. I must say, I've heard that tune so many times, but didn't quite realize what it was or where it came from. So I'm very glad to be able to musically put two and two together, the Adagio.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Over
Yes.
to the conductor.
Good evening, everybody. It's such a joy to be here, and really one of the best weeks of my life for so many reasons. Music first, friends, and everything else. Wine too. New discoveries. It's been a joy to work with all these wonderful young musicians, really. They inspire me every day, and every day they go better and better in such a quick amount of time. I don't know if you all realize, guys, this is incredible. In just a little over a week, a full repertoire like this, put it together. Bravi, bravi, bravi. Absolutely. And another particular joy has been working with my assistant, Lesedi Sibanda from Johannesburg. And he's been so helpful in so many ways, so smart, kind, and such a lover of music, like really few other people I know. So I decided I would like him to conduct the next piece. So I welcome him, maybe for a debut on the stage, I don't know. The next conductor of the next Cacciaturian piece will be actually Lesedi Sibanda from Johannesburg, and we welcome him with an incredible applause.
Well, that's a very nice touch and a very gracious move on behalf of the conductor of the Festival Concert Orchestra, Maestro Simeone Tartaglione, a first-timer at this year's Sicmf. And as he mentioned, he's nominated conducting participant Lesedi Sibanda to be the conductor for the next piece in the program, which is the Sabre Dance from another Cacciaturian ballet. The previous was Spartacus. And as I was saying to you just before Maestro Tartaglione took the microphone, I recognized the music, didn't quite know what it was, and now I will never forget that it is indeed the Adagio from that ballet, Spartacus by Cacciaturian, with those great sweeping string melodies and melodies and the trumpets. But now we hear the Sabre Dance from Cacciaturian's other ballet, Gaiane. Once again, the Festival Concert Orchestra just tuning up here on the Endler Hall stage, coming to you live from Stellenbosch. And remember, don't forget, if you're watching the live stream at this moment, to let us know where you're listening from, what you're most enjoying. If you're using other social media platforms, tag us, Sicmf 2024. But now, a surprise appearance from Maestro Lesedi Sibanda and the Festival Concert Orchestra, with perhaps his debut at the Sicmf, the Sabre Dance by Cacciaturian. Bravo to both conductor and orchestra, Maestro Lesedi Sibanda there. Surprise to us all, not printed on the program, but Maestro Simeone Tartaglione gave him the chance to conduct this work, the Sabre Dance by Kachchirin, played there by the 2024 Festival Concert Orchestra. And this is all about what the Sicmf is about, isn't it? Giving these young musicians the chance to perform and play and be on the podium and on the stage to play these great masterpieces here, as Peter Martens said at the start of this concert, make beautiful classical music on the southern tip of the African continent. And speaking of the festival director, I'll be speaking to him in the interval now in just a few minutes. So grab a glass of wine and join me then. Welcome back, and as always at this penultimate concert of the Stellenbosch International Chamber Music Festival, my guest is the very busy festival director, Peter Martens, who wears so many hats here at the Sicmf. I mean, personally, professionally, he's currently principal cellist with the Cape Town Philharmonic Orchestra, but more importantly for us now is the festival director of this fantastic event. And it's not for nothing that at our Sicmf award ceremony on Thursday, Peter was given the Spider-Man Award for clambering up the Marcussen organ in the Endler Hall, both to put up the Sicmf banners and I suppose in time take them down as well, which is always probably a very surreal experience, but also to take photographs, risky business for someone who is so indispensable to this festival. So Peter, looking back, this is the 19th edition of the Sicmf 2024. Besides the very stormy weather we've had this week, what else will spring to mind when you think of this year's festival?
This festival has definitely been one of the most pleasurable ones to organize. The organization has been so smooth. We have a wonderful team in place. I mean, we've had a wonderful team every year, but somehow it's gone very well this year. The fundraising has also gone particularly well. Tonight is actually Standard Bank's night, so there's a VIP reception going on in the other corner of the foyer.
You, so very grateful to have you with us tonight.
And you know, I'm just. Maybe it's just me, but after doing it for so many years, one gets a little bit more relaxed, and I feel relaxed, I feel confident, I feel that this festival is an iconic landmark now on the musical scene in the Western Cape and indeed in South Africa.
Oh, and further afield as well. I mean, look at the international faculty we attract.
It's just been a pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's hard work. I mean, it really is hard work.
Yes.
And it is scary because, I mean, in terms of fundraising, you never know if you've got enough money. We pay our faculty in euros and in dollars, and so it depends on the exchange rate at the end of the day.
Which has been fluctuating so much recently.
Exactly, that's one of the scary things. And then we have, of course, the audience. And, tonight is full house, which I'm delighted about. Some of the other nights have been... Well, they've all been pretty well attended, but some of them have been somewhat less attended than last year, and that's due to the weather, I think.
I mean, there have been reports, you know, avoid non-essential travel, and well, I guess some of us would count. This is very essential.
It's essential to travel here. It's
Indeed.
absolutely essential to travel here.
Yes. So, Peter, you've kind of anticipated a question I wanted to ask a little bit later, but as festival director, if you could wave a magic wand and take away one or two difficulties or troubles associated with the festival, because you've spoken about how well it does run, what would those be? I mean, presumably fundraising money still then remains
that would definitely be
distressing part
one of them. I am not a professional fundraiser. I'm a cellist by profession. I happen to be passionate about what I try and raise funds for. And you know, there are two golden rules about fundraising. You've got to be passionate about what you want to raise funds for, and you also need to have one-on-one relationships with your funders. So you've got to actually talk to people. If you do those two, and you do it enough, you will get people who are eventually going to give. But it's a long, hard job. You don't just walk up to somebody and half an hour later they're writing a check. It just doesn't work like that.
Something you've got to cultivate over a long period.
So that's the kind of thing that I would love to be more secure with. But other than that, you know, saying this to you actually reminds me of something that I say to my students. Sometimes I get a really good student who plays the music, who plays all the notes very, very well. But because there's no struggle involved, it doesn't really feel as if there's engagement from the heart. And in a way, the fundraising for the festival is the same sort of thing. I guess it feels more worthwhile if you've really struggled to get it.
A labour of love.
There's definitely something of that in it, I think.
Yeah, that does kind of make the reward even more sort of satisfying.
Yeah.
But I think a very important analogy with music. So continuing the musical theme then, we've seen you on the stage during many of the faculty concerts. Very diverse selection, and I'll be chatting to Nina tomorrow, of course, to
Right.
go into a little more depth about this year's programming. But what have, for you, been some of your playing highlights at this year's festival?
I would say they are. Well, they're all so great, but I have to say that the Mendelssohn String Quartet is definitely a highlight for me. Madeleine Adkins is a phenomenal violinist, and the way in which she plays Mendelssohn in particular with finesse and with virtuosity and with grace, she inspires the rest of us who play in the quartet with her. She always leads these Mendelssohn quartets at the festival. It's become something of a regular at these festivals.
Indeed.
And I've played, this is the second one that I've played in with her, and that's an absolute privilege for me to be part of the Mendelssohn quartet. It's the second year I'm part of the Mendelssohn quartet. And I have to say the other thing that was a real highlight for me was the Beethoven Piano Concerto in the first performance. Emanuel Ivanov is a wonderful pianist, also very sensitive and very dexterous, and everything seems to, it's almost as if he's got a magical golden wand that just conjures up this beauty out of the instrument. It's really great, and I'm a bit of a Beethoven, I don't know what to say, fanatic maybe, just engaging with him on the subject of Beethoven and playing the music with him in this very special arrangement that we played. We didn't do it with a full orchestra. We did the fourth Beethoven concerto.
Absolutely.
And we did it in a special arrangement for string quintet and piano. You might think that doing an arrangement like that is nothing like what Beethoven intended, but you couldn't be more wrong. Most performances in Beethoven's day were probably not done with the full forces because, well, they didn't have the material, they didn't have many sets of parts, and it was hard to get a full orchestra together, and they would do so for a premiere and one or two performances thereafter. But Beethoven wanted his music to be heard by many people, and these kind of Schubert soirees, if you like, were organized in libraries and in living rooms and in people's houses. And if you wanted to present Beethoven's Fourth Piano Concerto in somebody's living room, you can't have a full symphony orchestra. So these arrangements were abundant, and this particular one that we played was unearthed by a phenomenal Beethoven musicologist by the name of Jonathan Delmar. And he has edited almost all of Beethoven's music now for Barenreiter, which is probably the top publisher of Beethoven's music in the world, and of many other composers as well. So he got hold of the parts of a quintet arrangement of the accompaniment that existed in Beethoven's day, edited it, cleaned it up, and reproduced it in a Barenreiter edition so that we could do that same sort of thing today. Yeah. And that was so special for me, being a bit of a Beethoven guy. It was just really special to be able to do. Those are probably my two highlights.
And so fresh in a way, many of us are familiar with the concerto for full orchestral forces.
And I played it a lot in the orchestra, so to play the chamber music version was very special.
And even Emmanuel, who was here, with the flash of Rachmaninoff when he was here with the Cape Philharmonic Orchestra last year, the Rhapsody and the theme of Paganini, and now they're much more sort of controlled guys in a sense for the Beethoven.
All the great artists these days do that. They
have that versatility.
They can play those virtuoso concertos, but they also regard chamber music as something very, very special and very, very essential as part of the body of music that they play. I suppose there's some in the old days who used to play concertos and don't play chamber music, but these days all the greats play all these different genres and forms of music. I mean, it's amazing how somebody like him can play a big romantic piano concerto and the next day play a fine quartet or trio or something. Today's musicians are quite phenomenal.
Well, that's something the Sicmf aims to cultivate as well, of course, by giving the students chances in the public masterclass, perhaps for solo performance.
Right.
And then, of course, in the chamber music coaching sessions and the student concerts.
Right.
And now here in the orchestral show concerts, being part of a much larger ensemble. So having all those strings to their bows.
I was sitting next to Mike Repper, the conductor of the other orchestra, in the audience now, and I said to him at the end of the piece now, imagine what that must have felt like for a student who has never ever played in a full symphony orchestra before. Right. And I bet you there were 20 or 30 young students on the stage tonight for whom this was the very first experience of a symphony orchestra, and how awesome must that have been for them?
Yeah, well, thank you for enabling that, Pete. I mean, that's part of what you and your
That's
team
what
do
we
here.
do here.
And not just the instrumentalists, but then as Maestro did, inviting Lesedi on stage to conduct that
Yes,
final,
lovely-
the saber
lovely
dance as well.
touch, yeah.
What a beautiful touch that was.
Yeah.
Two more things I quickly want to touch on, and then I'll let you get back to your
I'm not in a hurry.
sponsors. But you mentioned the camaraderie of playing with these incredible musicians, so many of whom are really part of the extended family. They come back year after year. I mean, it must be quite tough in a way to say goodbye now at the end of this intense week of music making,
Right.
knowing you'll see many of them in a year's time, that perhaps paths won't always sort of cross again that sort of soon in the future. So there must be kind of a sense of phew, accomplishment, job well done at the end of the festival, but also a kind of poignancy as well.
No, absolutely, and I mean that's the trick, isn't it? With everything, you should end whilst the going's good. You shouldn't flog a dead horse. So I mean, if we reach a fantastic level after 10 days, and we're, you know, if we decided to go on for 20 days, we'd probably be completely exhausted. So yes, it's sad to end because we're on such a high and such a high point, but we have to end, and we look forward to seeing everybody next
Yes,
year.
indeed. But one needs to return to the real world at some point. But now, as so many of the artists, but also the students I've spoken to have mentioned, now really buoyed up on a high, freshly inspired to kind of hit the ground running with whatever comes next, teaching, playing, their own studies. So Peter, next year's a big year for the Sicmf, 20 years.
It is indeed. You know, this would have been our 21st festival if it hadn't been for
Right,
COVID.
indeed.
But we skipped two, and that's why the dates don't quite work out.
Yes, so
The first
2020
festival-
and 2021, kind of, yes.
Yeah,
we
so
don't
next
talk-
year we will be hosting our 20th festival, and we're going to have to pull a rabbit out of the hat and do something very, very special.
Yes. Nothing you can reveal at this stage, other than, I mean, it's so
not
good
yet.
as it is, but
Yeah, the one or two plans have been chatted about behind closed doors with Nina,
right.
but nothing to reveal at this stage.
Okay, I'll see if I can offer her or entice her to reveal more tomorrow. But Peter, so grateful for all that you do, not only for the Chamber Music Festival here, but music locally in Cape Town, beyond. I know you're involved in Mozambique and, of course, frequently abroad as well. So thank you for flying our flag. And we had a little disappointment on the rugby field a couple of hours ago. But
Oh, I wasn't even
by
aware
the
of
end
that.
of this
No.
evening, that will be a very distant memory, and we'll all be on the high of Dvorak, which we're going to be hearing
Yes,
very, very
okay,
shortly.
good.
So while I give you a chance to escape, we're going to go over to Jason just to hear and see what else is going on in the conserve tonight.
Hi there, John. I am standing here with the principal of the Frank Peterson Music Institution, Mr. Peterson. Mr. Peterson, Frank Peterson Music Institution, is there a connection there?
Jason, Frank Peterson Music Center was started in 1970 by my father, Frank Peterson. And it just happened
Yeah.
that way. That, let's say, because the center was an informal institution, right at the start, myself was involved in teaching at the center, and as we grew the music in Paarl area, the education department decided to take us over as a full-time institution. And when that happened, myself, of course, applied for the post, and I think I was actually schooled in that and maybe prepared for becoming the principal of Frank Peterson Music Center.
Okay. So, how was the first half of the program for you? I know that some of your students are actually in the orchestra tonight.
I think it was most overwhelming because of our learners that was part of it. And I think our learners will one day look back and realize that the opportunity that the Stellenbosch International Ensemble Festival provided them meant quite a lot in their musical upbringing.
Yeah. And I was saying earlier that it's schools like the Frank Peterson Music Institution and then the Hugo Lambrecht School that plays a big part in the future of this this festival as a whole, because essentially they are the future of the festival. And I mean, it's such a cool event for them to actually be part of a professional orchestra at a venue like the Endlo Hall. So what's the feelings for you as a principal, seeing all your kids on stage, knowing that in a few years' time they'll be again on stage, maybe studying music here or at a different institution, but still coming back for the Chamber Festival?
Jason, first of all, I must say say thank you to the organisers of the festival. So specifically, the person that I liaised with is Dr. Peter Martens.
Yes.
And thank you so much for the opportunity provided for these learners to attend the festival. And for me as the principal, it just made me proud. Watching our young kids, we've got 13 learners here this year. And there was one year when I was actually more proud when 12 of our learners studied music at Stellenbosch University, and all of them performed in the symphony orchestra at that stage, Stellenbosch Student Orchestra. So I think there's lots of growth, lots of potential in the area. It just depends on how will we take hands as tertiary institutions and our day schools or our music centers and provide the opportunity to our learners to eventually either study music or that music just become part of their daily life.
Yeah, and I mean, a lot of these students come from previously disadvantaged areas. So this is quite a big thing for them. I mean, I know with me, myself, from Mitchell's Plain and from Kraaifontein, we don't know about things like this. And so for you as the Frank Peterson Institution to actually introduce this to your students, it's probably a big thing for them as well.
No, definitely. And I think it's us as teachers, us as adults that let's say everything is in our hands.
Yeah.
How will we make that opportunity available for these learners?
I'm so glad to hear that. But I hear that you are actually retiring in September. Or you say, you're getting too old now because you don't look like you're 65.
I think it's the departmental rule that if you turn 65, you've got to retire. It's actually compulsory. I received my writing a letter and says you have to move on.
Yeah.
But I believe after a very good rest of a month or two or three, I will be back and I will be definitely go out into our schools and to recruit learners so that we can also make the opportunity available to as many as possible learners.
No, I'm so glad. And I hope you enjoy your retirement. Thank you so much for sharing some of your time with us today. And I hope you enjoy the second half of the program. And then, as you can hear, the bell is ringing now, so that's the time for us to take our seats. So while we do that, I'll send it back to you, John.
Thank you.
Awesome, Jason, thank you so much. It's so encouraging and inspiring to hear these stories and all these different role players and really building and growing the musical ecosystem here in Cape Town, Stellenbosch and surrounds. So yes, the bells are ringing, nearly time to go back inside. Our concert tonight concludes with the 8th Symphony in G major, Opus 88, by Czech composer Antonín Dvořák, who lived from 1841 to 1904. This symphony was composed in 1889 and bears a dedication to Emperor Franz Joseph I. It was also used to mark Dvořák's election to the Royal Bohemian Academy of Science, Literature and Arts the following year. And this symphony also received a high-profile performance in Cambridge prior to the composer being awarded an honorary doctorate there. As with many of Dvořák's mature works, the 8th Symphony draws on Bohemian folk music, but differs from his other symphonic efforts in being a more light-hearted affair. For instance, the second movement is a pastoral scene inspired directly by Beethoven's 6th Symphony, and even includes a depiction of a thunderstorm, all very appropriate around here in the Cape of Storms. And so just before we go in to listen to the Sicmf 2024 Festival Concert Orchestra, here's another highlight from last night's first concert with the Symphony Orchestra, the first few minutes of the mighty first movement of the Second Symphony by Borodin. And we're back live inside the Endler Hall for the second half of this penultimate concert of the 2024 Sicmf. You can tell that everyone's been having such a good time in the interval, enjoying their wine, chatting to one another, dissecting and celebrating the music they've just heard, that the ushers are having trouble corralling them all back inside. And so, as you heard me mention a few minutes ago, this next work on the program is Dvorak's Penultimate Symphony, number 8. As usual with Dvorak's music, infused with the colors, the melodies, the rhythms of his homeland, Bohemia, but much light-hearted, much more light-hearted than some of his other music. We heard the 7th Symphony just a few weeks ago with the Cape Town Philharmonic Orchestra, and that really much more muscular work, more Brahms perhaps than Dvorak. Brahms was a very important influence musically in Dvorak's life. And so it'll be good to hear this number 8 now, some weeks later, as a kind of antidote, complement, foil to that 7th symphony. And in fact, we heard the 9th symphony just a few months ago, also played by our CPO, so it feels like it's a big Dvorak year. In fact, he died in 1904, so I guess we could be celebrating 120 years since then this year. This work is in 4 movements: allegro, adagio, scherzo, and then allegro ma non troppo. So fast, slow, the joke-like scherzo 3rd movement, and then a fast finale. And it really ends with blazing brass. It's a great piece. And I think a very good choice for an orchestra like this, whom we heard from Peter in the interval that for some of the musicians on the stage, this is their first opportunity playing in an orchestra of this size, playing this kind of music on this scale. And so the concertmaster of the Festival Concert Orchestra has risen, the oboe is playing the critical note, and the orchestra's tuning up. This work was first performed in Prague in 1890, and that premiere was very successful, and afterwards Dvorak conducted the work in Frankfurt and then in Cambridge. The night before, he was awarded his honorary doctorate, as you'll remember me mentioning a few minutes ago. Tchaikovsky also received an honorary doctorate from Cambridge, so clearly they know what they're doing, awarding some of our best symphonic composers for their contributions. Because this work was published in London rather than by Simrock, who published many of Dvorak's other pieces, sometimes the symphony has the nickname the English Symphony because of its place of publication, but that's where the resemblance ends. It's all Czech through and through, and so enjoy Dvorak's sparkling orchestration, his melodies, as Maestro Simeone Tartaglioni conducts the 2024 Sicmf Festival Concert Orchestra in the Symphony No. 8 by Dvorak in 4 movements. A symphony imbued with cheerfulness and optimism. Dvorak's penultimate symphony, hearing it here on the penultimate night of the Sicmf 2024, played there by the Festival Concert Orchestra, conducted by Maestro Simeone Tartaglione, in its 4 movements, ending in a blazing triumph. And didn't you really feel how all those colors, the rhythms, the harmonies of Dvorak's homeland, Bohemia, really came through in so many of the movements of that symphony? The conductor congratulating the individual instrument groups, or players in this case. Whoops, is it a flute, is it a clarinet or bow? Onto the brass. Trumpets, bassoons, principal horn player, the whole horn section, all the winds and the brass. What would the Dvorak symphony be without them? Double basses, violas, cellos, including the red one, and all the violins, and the concertmaster. And the audience on their feet, an electric buzz here in the Endler Hall. As Peter Martens mentioned a little bit earlier, probably the first time many of these young musicians are playing in an orchestra of this size and playing one of the great masterworks in the symphonic repertoire. It looks like there might be an encore.
Okay. We got the message, and so we're going to do the end of the Rossini William Tell again. But you need to participate. Okay, so it's not going to be free. You need to be with us. So as there is the tradition with Radetzky March, the audience clap with it. There is also a tradition with the Italian Rossini William Tell that the audience clap too. Same game, soft or loud, and then I cut you off. Let's practice. The conductor needs to give a little sign. So let's try. Smaller, bigger, right? Let's do again. The piano first. You were very well educated all together. That's amazing. Great job, guys. You know how the piece goes, right? At some point I'm going to cut you off. That means we need to do some stuff without you, then you come back. Okay?
feels like we're at one of those Viennese New Year's concerts. And a very nice touch to involve the audience and to end that concert the way it began, with that final section of the William Tell Overture by Rossini, Maestro Simeone Tartaglione, conducting the Festival Concert Orchestra at this year's Sicmf, and concluding the penultimate concert of this year's festival. Can you believe we're at this point already? The kudos to all the musicians on stage, to the conductor. They've worked very hard this week to bring that music to fruition. The overture by Rossini that we heard there, and then earlier in the concert, the two extracts from the ballets by Khachaturian, and then that fantastic symphony, the penultimate symphony from Dvorak's pen, number 8. All performed with such enthusiasm and flair by our faculty conductor visiting the Stellenbosch Chamber Music Festival for the very first time, Simeone Tartaglione, and our festival concert orchestra. Bravo. And to all the parents, family and friends for their support of the musicians and who make their participation in this festival possible. And that's a wrap for this penultimate evening concert of the 2024 Sicmf. The Festival Concert Orchestra was led by Simone Tartaglione in a glorious program of music by Rossini, Khachaturian and Dvorak. And they will also be performing some of the music again tomorrow in a community concert. That's Sunday at Klapmuts Primary School, just around the corner. So if you liked what you heard tonight, you can hear it again in person tomorrow. We welcome the Festival Symphony Orchestra once again under Mike Repper back on stage tomorrow for Senza Maya by Revueltas and the Second Symphony by Borodin. We'll also hear Bartok's Viola Concerto with faculty violinist, or violist I should say, Jennifer Stum as soloist. And you may remember her mentioning in our chat last night that this work, written as Bartok was dying and in fact left incomplete at his death, has one foot on earth but also looks towards the heavens. Note that that concert starts in the late afternoon at 4:30 p.m. South African time and not at 8 o'clock like all the others. But of course it will be live streamed and available online afterwards for your listening pleasure for years to come. One more day of chamber music magic left at this year's Sicmf. Don't miss out. And so until tomorrow afternoon, this is John Woodland and the team signing off. Good night.